jump start 2025 today. Do something before the end of the year so that you hit 2025 running. Bet on yourself. So you can look yourself in the mirror, say to yourself, I am going to bet on myself to be a better version of myself in 2025. Now, the nanosecond you do that, something special happens, is that your confidence soars, your ability to execute soars. That's what. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Vitality Explorer podcast. My name is Dr. Alan Mishra. I'm an orthopedic surgeon, sports medicine specialist, and founder of this podcast. This is a special edition. This is the 150th Vitality Explorer podcast edition. I've been doing this now for 3 years. As people who are listening to this know, I really enjoy doing it. We always start with a quote, and this one is from Yoda. Obviously the Star Wars character, but there is no try. There is either do or do not. That's again from Yoda. I'd like to thank everybody again for listening. It has been my absolute pleasure to produce this. I'm going to give you a little sneak peek behind the scenes of how I've been doing this for 3 years, how we got to 150, and we are now video recording this today. So we're going to try to see if we can explore that in 2025 a little bit more. But what happens each week is I research anywhere between 5 and 10 scientific articles looking for things that are to be meaningful, actionable to improve our physical, mental, social, and or spiritual well-being. I then distill those down to 3 Vitality Explorer posts, which you can find on the Vitality Explorer Substack site, trying to reduce sometimes very complicated, difficult science into a few hundred words that you can read in anywhere from 2 to 4 minutes, 3 times per week. And then we produce the podcast once per week. And the podcast, the Vitality Explorer Substack site, they're based on a couple principles. Number one, the mission is to enhance vitality one person at a time. So if just one person listening to this, viewing this, or consuming this in any way finds this meaningful and helpful, then I will have done my job. We also have 2 core principles. Number one is vitality is a skill. And if it's a skill, then it can be learned and taught. And number 2 is vitality is a gift you give yourself. It's not something I can give you, not something your government, your mom, your doctor can give you. It's something you earn by taking better control over your choices and decisions on a daily basis. So we're going to just continue with what we've been doing over the past 3 years, and that is to go over 3 specific topics this week. And we start by going through a vitality action suggestion for the week. And this podcast is being produced and will be delivered at the end of 2024. But our goal today, our action suggestion, our vitality action suggestion for the day is to jump start 2025 today. Now, we're going to get into that a little bit in the first section, but that means to just do something. Do something before the end of the year so that you hit 2025 running. The other things we're going to talk about are unlocking the power of a very simple blood test, a CBC, and then we're going to finish with sort of a review of the 2024 literature of exercise as a vitality enhancing elixir. So I did do a Viverse live event, which is available for paid subscribers on the Vitality Explorer Substack site, about how to jumpstart 2025. And we're going to talk a little bit about some of the highlights of that live session that we did about a week ago. And we thought about this a lot, or I thought about this a lot in the context of really a question. So as you're thinking about this, listening to this, or watching this, think about this question. How can you optimize your meaning and or your joy in 2025? Okay, now those 2 things are a little different. And then we reviewed 4 specific suggestions about how to optimize your meaning and your joy in 2025. And here's what we talked about. The first is something that I've mentioned on Vitality Explorers before, and that is to bet on yourself. So you can look yourself in the mirror, you can just close your eyes, whatever you want to say is say to yourself, I am going to bet on myself to be a better version of myself in 2025. Now, the nanosecond you do that, something special happens, is that your confidence soars, your ability to execute soars. That's why I start with that one. And I've had to do that over and over and over again with myself, but it also makes you responsible for your choices because you start to eliminate other people's excuses or other circumstances as excuses. The second is sort of connected to that first one. And again, we're talking about how to jumpstart 2025 how to optimize your meaning and your joy in 2025. But the second thing you got to do if you're going to optimize your meaning is to silence the voice of judgment in your head. This is part of the thing I put in my book about, Dare to Be Vital book. But I interviewed a whole bunch of people who are super successful all over the world, really. And I tried to figure out what is the thread between all these people in terms of where they got where they were going and how they were optimizing their vitality and their performance over time. And it was almost to a person that they could silence this little voice of judgment that they were going to fail in their head. Now, it didn't mean that they didn't have it. They had that voice of judgment that you're not going to do well. Somebody's going to call you out for whatever your dreams are. But they were able to quiet that voice, and they were to listen to the angel on the other side saying, you're going to do it. And that's why we start with betting on yourself, by the way, is that if you bet on yourself, I think you have a better chance of silencing the little devil on your shoulder and listening to the angel. And then the third, and this is the hardest one, I think is the hardest one, for a lot of people, myself included, is to reimagine discipline as your greatest strength. Let me say that again. Reimagine discipline as your greatest strength. And then the final one is to prioritize fun, family, and friends. So let's unpack that a little bit more. And here's some specific recommendations about how to jumpstart 2025. And again, what the podcast is the 3 posts that I put up on the Vitality Explorer Substack site. I sometimes, while I'm doing the podcast, I refer to the posts to help me remember what I've actually written before. And again, the Vitality Explorer mission is to optimize your vitality one person at a time based on scientific data. So here's one of the suggestions that I had is don't wait till New Year's Eve to put your resolutions together. I would start today to work on thinking about what you want to do for 2025. Reflect deeply, you can write those down. Again, focused on that question of how you're going to optimize meaning and joy in 2025. And if you start now, early action, I think helps create momentum, and it could actually lead to a truly transformative year. And so one of the final things you can think about is asking what are your unique abilities and how can I use those to maximize the meaning, not just of my own life, but all the lives around me, your friends, your family, your community. And one of the stories we talked about on the Vitality Explorer webinar, which we had a week or so ago, was Marie Curie. And Marie Curie was one of the world's most amazing scientists. She had not 1, but 2 Nobel Prizes, okay? And she was a female scientist at a time when that was very difficult, but she used her significant talent to optimize what she could contribute back to society in terms of meaning. And that was for her, being a super scientist, she did a lot of work on early radioactivity. But I think each one of us has a unique ability, a unique talent that we can share with the world to help other people. So when you transform yourself, you can help transform the world around you. And that kind of creates a ripple effect. So the minute you start to become a better version of yourself, other people start looking at you, they try to become a little bit better version. You could be the example that will help motivate other people. Think about that. You could be the example that helps motivate other people to chase their dreams. That's a little bit more responsibility. Now to the fun part. Prioritize joy as a lifelong investment. Now, we don't talk about this as much, but we're going to talk a lot more in 2025. But cultivating joy is absolutely essential, I think. And it's not happiness, but it's joy. And we did this review of joy in the context of Dick Van Dyke's 99th birthday, which was about a week ago. And he really had a zest for life. And for those younger people out there, I encourage you to look him up. But there's also a new song by Coldplay about his life that we put on the Vitality Explorer Substack site. You can also find it on YouTube. But when you have consistent, just small episodes of joy in your life over time, or little moments, we've talked about meaningful moments leads to a meaningful life. Well, maybe magical joy moments leads to magical memories that you can talk about later with your friends, your family, when you're in the rocking chair at the end of your days. So for this first part of the Vitality Explorer podcast this week, again, the 150th podcast you're listening to, reflect on what you could do. Jumpstart 2025 now. Look for meaning, look for ways to have joy, commit to small, specific actions, and that could just be practicing gratitude, and start to build that foundation for 2025 today. And then we came up with this 12 days of vitality, which we talked about. And there's, again, some things you can see on the Vitality Explorer Substack site, the Vitality Blueprint, but doing 1,000 seconds a day with 17 minutes, you could split that up into 250 seconds on your physical well-being by just doing some maybe sit to stand exercises, some bicep curls. You could spend 250 seconds, again, that's about 4 minutes on your mental well-being by just taking, some time for meditation. That could also be your spiritual well-being. And then your social well-being, text somebody, get on a phone call, say hello, say, hey, you've been thinking about it. There's a million different things you can do, but dedicate 1,000 seconds every day for the next 12 days, which by the way is about 1,000,000 seconds in total time. So that'd be 17,000 seconds of your total time in the next 12 days. I shouldn't say that, it's probably 20,000 seconds. But it's not a huge amount of time, but if you commit 1,000 seconds per day, you're gonna level up and be better for 2025. So check out the Vitality Explorer Substack site if you're interested in more about how to jumpstart 2025. I want to pivot to the second part of this Vitality Explorer podcast. Again, you're listening to the Vitality Explorer podcast with Dr. Alan Mishra. If you're loving what you're listening to, please share this widely. Please leave us a 5-star rating on wherever you get your podcast, Apple, Spotify, or if you're actually watching part of this on YouTube. So thank you for all the new subscribers and people interested in what we're doing. What I want to talk about is something I found pretty staggering, and that is how to unlock the power of a very simple blood test. For anybody, almost anybody out there who's had any blood test, you might have had something called a complete blood count, a CBC. And the CBC is sort of just a standard way. It's a very, very standard test that's done all over the world. It looks at sort of the number of white blood cells, the number of red blood cells, the number of platelets, sort of the percentages of things. It measures your hemoglobin, your hematocrit. These are all just basic physiologic functions of your blood, right? So what people have done, very fascinating new research, which again, you can see the references and the pictures on the Vitality Explorer Substack site, but they have data about looking at these numbers over time. And let me just read this. Newly published research evaluating more than 12,000 patients over 20 years outline the importance of using a CBC testing to predict disease. And here's the kicker. There's a pretty wide normal range. Let's just take your white blood cell count. The lower normal could be 4,500 white blood cells, and the upper could be 11,000. But think about that. That's more than twice the number, the upper versus the lower. And what these researchers found is that we all have a certain set point for these parameters that are within this simple CBC test. So mine typically is pretty low, around 4.5 or something like that, maybe 5. But if I go from 5 to 9, that could mean that I've got something going on, right? Now we do have things where these vary. If you get an infection, if you get an accident, if you have surgery, these parameters will change. But here's a couple quotes from the paper that I think are really, really important. Number one, this one-size-fits-all reference level is used to present for interpretation are very wide and can therefore be insensitive to signs of disease and recovery. That's the first quote. The second one is, quote, understanding the nature of long-term variation in common diagnostic and screening tests is crucial for realizing the vision of precision medicine. Okay, so those are really important. So this research again focused on these idea of set points. So we're set at 4.5, or we're set at 6.5 for our white blood cell count, and a change in that set point is what we're looking at, not the absolute value. All right, and so set points are typically quite tightly, over for individuals. So they have examples of this over a 20-year period of time where it essentially didn't change. So they were, quote, surprisingly stable over time. But if you changed, or if you're within certain set points, and it's kind of complicated, and I encourage people to look at more of the data on the Substack site, but there was a chart that predicted the 10-year survival based on set points, okay? And they divided people into quintiles, which is basically the lowest 20%, 20 to 40, 40 to 60, 60 to 80, and then above the 80th percentile in various parameters in this simple blood test, the CBC. So for example, if you had, if you were in the lower level of white blood cells, you had a different 10-year survival rate than the very high. For instance, if you're the above the 80th percentile in your white blood cell count, you have a higher risk of dying over the course of time, okay? So looking at this, and they also looked not just at overall death, but prediction of disease. And this is fascinating. So these were people who didn't have these diseases before they started measuring them. And then they were looking at different versions of these different parameters within the CBC test. Again, probably the easiest thing is to look at it. I'm just looking at this is your white blood cell count. I'm using that consistently through the talk, but there's 6 or 8 different things you can test within the CBC. But if your set point was above, again, the 75th percentile in this case, then you've had a higher risk of developing diabetes versus if you were less than the 75th percentile. So I'm going to quote a couple quotes from the paper, and this is Foy et al. In 2024. But according to the paper, the complete blood cell count set points are shaped by both genetics and life experience, and this offers a dual lens to understand a person's health. The set points reflect heritable traits while also incorporating acquired factors related to lifestyle choice and life stages. The CBC set points could become a powerful tool for personalized medicine and disease prediction. So again, a CBC, a complete blood count, is a very stable, deeply personalized test. And here's what's the kicker. This stuff is not that expensive relative to other tests. Now, a lot of people are talking about getting a number of parameters tested. This could be hundreds, if not thousands of dollars to test. But testing the same thing over time, again, maybe just a CBC to start, but other things, and figuring out where your set point is and then seeing if you deviate from that set point is a different way, a different paradigm of thinking about these tests. And I guarantee your doctor is not looking at this as closely as he or she should. All right, so healthcare providers who are listening to this in any way, shape, or form, try. I know where I work, there are ways of graphing people over time. You can see some things that are changed, so it provides a deeper and richer understanding of what's going on with the patient, and potentially is going to allow us to predict disease. And then I finished the Vitality Explorer Substack site post on this, and I said this new research could set, pun intended, a new standard for precision medicine. And I think it's incumbent upon those who are healthcare providers to learn more about this idea of set points for CBCs, complete blood counts, and other blood tests if we're going to optimally care for our patients. And for the people who are listening out there who are not healthcare providers, being a little bit more in charge and understanding maybe you had a CBC 20 years ago and 10 years ago, trying to gather all that data in the same place is going to be an important thing that'll help you, lead you to a better idea of where you are and if some simple blood test has changed and increased your risk for a problem, or could help you figure out what's going on if you do have a problem. So we're going to finish this week's Vitality Explorer podcast. Again, my name is Dr. Alan Mishra, and you're listening to the 150th Vitality Explorer podcast. Please share this widely, and please leave us a 5-star rating on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get this podcast. And the final one is something that is near and dear to my heart. And what I did is I looked back at all of the posts and a couple new articles about why exercise is a vitality enhancing elixir. All right. And it is staggering to me that this information is not well disseminated in my world, and it's becoming more and more interesting to a variety of different stakeholders, because billions upon billions, if not trillions of dollars are being spent right now trying to keep people alive. People looking for the fountain of youth. People are sort of doing crazy things like youth to older people, blood transfusions. People are getting stem cells injected from other people that have been grown in labs into joints to prevent things, not just to treat, but to prevent things. But I think there's a very simple, not easy, but simple thing that we need to do. And I've said this many times, but I think we can try to avoid unproven things. I know a lot about PRP and a lot about stem cell treatments, and these are moving forward rapidly, but there's also a lot of nonsense out there. So stick with people who are following peer-reviewed published literature if you're engaging in any regenerative medicine type of activities. But one of the best regenerative medicine activities that can be close to cost-free is to exercise relentlessly. And it avoids a lot of the dangerous potential interactions that some of these treatments have or risk factors. But if you start today, and again, we're talking about jumpstarting 2025, so this podcast will come out at the end of 2024, start today to exercise relentlessly, and your future self will thank you. I'm going to read a couple quotes from some of these papers that came out in 2024 about why exercise is so important. Quote, systematic exposure to recurring exercise stimuli results in long-term adaptations of various tissues and induces a myriad of well-known exercise effects. Okay, now something magical. This is what I think is fascinating and not well known. Something magical happens when you exercise moderately for about 20 minutes or more. Your body, not just your muscles, but your bones, your liver, other things are just getting geared up to release very powerful molecules that help you. Now, these have fancy names, but we need to get to know these names: exerkines and myokines. And one of the goals of the Vitality Explorer podcast, Substack site, is to level up people's understanding of their own bodies. So you can plug your ears if you don't want to listen to some biology here, but I think you're going to be better off if you learn a little bit about what's going on in your own body. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about 2 or 3 of these exerkines or myokines, again, which are just molecules that are released from your muscle, your bone, your liver, or other parts of your body to help you. And I'm going to use big names, but get to know them, because here's 2 of them that are very important: irisin and brain-derived neurotrophic factor, BDNF. And these are 2 of the most powerful that are released into your system after your exercise, and they promote metabolic and mental health. Okay, and let me read you a couple of these very important things that are associated with these 2 molecules. And here's some of the important actions of irisin, and it's IRISIN. Number 1, it promotes the conversion of white fat tissue to energy-burning brown fat tissue. We've talked about that before. You have a lot of brown fat when you're a real little kid to keep you warm, but we lose that over time. You can stimulate the production or stimulate the conversion of white fat to brown fat, which is good, by exercising. Number 2, irisin is associated with improved cognitive function and better mental health. Okay, so the second one, BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, used to think it was only in your brain, but it does some staggeringly good things, and it's associated with people who exercise consistently. Number 1, it promotes neuron survival, protecting against brain deterioration. Number 2, low levels are strongly associated with anxiety and depression. Number 3, high levels have positive effects on mental health, sort of obvious there because of the inversion. And number 4 is it regulates energy balance and glucose metabolism. So these 2, irisin, BDNF, are molecules. They're exerkines or myokines that are released when you exercise. The other thing that's kind of interesting is if you don't exercise maybe to exhaustion, like doing a marathon or something, but if you exercise moderately, it modifies or moderates the inflammation in your body, and it does so through something called IL-1RA. And IL-1RA these are all naturally occurring molecules in your body, but when you exercise, it stimulates IL-1RA production to help sort of moderate inflammation in your body. And you can think of it sort of as I call it like a peacekeeper. It's trying to keep things in balance so you don't get too inflamed. You can see all the details of this on the Vitality Explorer Substack site. I have a little video on YouTube about myokines, but irisin, BDNF, IL-1RA. I know that sounds like an alphabet soup of stuff to remember. You don't have to remember it, but by getting a little smarter about what your body does when you exercise, I'm hoping it'll motivate you to exercise more consistently. And you can think of exercise as a naturally vitality enhancing elixir that your body is going to produce, and you're infusing your body with these cool, they're already there, but you're releasing them, you're producing more, and it's a powerful, powerful potion. Okay, so we went through. I sort of distilled down a whole bunch of literature, lots of different papers into a short post. One of our goals with the Vitality Explorer Substack site is to produce something that's super meaningful in 30 minutes or less that you can listen to. And if you listen to it at 1.5x speed, that would be 15 minutes or less, probably 15 or 20 minutes. But each week we try to deliver something. I've been doing it for 150 weeks now. Our goal again is to optimize your vitality, optimize vitality one person at a time. We try to deliver cutting edge research into digestible info snacks, if you will, that you can either read or listen to or now watch. But again, the suggestion for this week, the Vitality Explorer suggestion based on the 3 things we talked about, jumpstarting 2025, looking at the CBC as the complete blood count as a powerful way over time to test your well-being, and then finally looking at exercise and the molecular basis of exercise. But a specific vitality action suggestion for this week is to jumpstart 2025. Think about your physical, mental, social, and or spiritual well-being and try to identify one or two things you can start today. Don't wait till New Year's Eve. You can start today to work on to make 2025 a better year. So begin today to become a better version of yourself. Tomorrow, remember our quote for the week. This is again from Yoda. There is no try. There's only do or do not. All right. Thank you everybody for listening to this 150th episode of the Vitality Explorer podcast. My name is Dr. Alan Mishra. Please subscribe online to the Vitality Explorer Substack site. And until next time, and actually it'll be next year, until next year, beginning of 2025, get out there and dare to be vital. Thank you very much for listening, everybody, and thank you for supporting the work that I've been doing for 3 years. It's been a delight to do so.